Before we get into tonight's stories, drop a comment and tell me where you're listening from. I write these from New Jersey, and every time I see how far they travel, it genuinely surprises me. Let me know you're out there. I babysat for the Ralston family one time. Just once. I was 17 then, still in high school, and babysitting was basically the easiest money you could make where I lived. Most jobs were completely forgettable. Kids watched movies, parents came home tipsy from dinner, everybody went to sleep. This was different from the second I walked in the door. Not obviously dangerous, just off. It was early November, already dark by like 5:15. Cold rain all day. The kind that leaves the roads shiny and empty-looking at night. The Ralstons lived at the end of a cul-de-sac backing into woods. Nice neighborhood, but isolated compared to the rest of town. Their backyard just disappeared into trees. Mrs. Ralston opened the front door while putting on a coat. Before I even stepped inside, Mr. Ralston said, "One rule tonight. Don't go into the basement." That was it. No explanation. He said it casually, but not jokingly. I remember smiling awkwardly because I assumed he meant the basement was unfinished or flooding or something. But then Mrs. Ralston added, "And if Ellie goes near the door, just redirect her." That wording stuck with me afterward. Redirect her, not, "She's scared of it." Not, "She likes playing down there." Redirect her. I asked if they were having work done downstairs. Mr. Ralston answered immediately, "No." Then silence. The kids were in the living room watching a movie. 2 girls and a younger boy. Ellie, the youngest, was maybe 3 years old and carrying around this stuffed lamb with one missing button eye. The parents left around 6 o'clock. At first, the night was completely normal. Pizza, Disney movie, the older kids arguing over blankets. But every once in a while, Ellie would wander off toward the kitchen hallway. The basement door was back there, white wooden door beside the pantry. The first time I noticed her standing there, she wasn't touching the knob or anything, just staring at it. "Ellie," I called, "what are you doing?" She looked at me, then quietly said, "He's listening." I laughed a little because toddlers say weird, creepy things all the time. "Who's listening?" She shrugged, then walked back into the living room like nothing happened. That should have been the end of it. But she kept doing it. Every 20 or 30 minutes, I'd realize she'd wandered off again, and I'd find her standing silently in front of the basement door. Not playing, not talking. Listening. At one point, I asked the older daughter, Ava, why Ellie kept doing that. The girl immediately looked uncomfortable. "She's not supposed to." That was all she said. Then she turned back toward the TV. I remember starting to feel this weird tension in the house around then. Nothing specific. Just the sense that everybody knew some rule I didn't. Around 8:30, I started getting the kids ready for bed upstairs. The older 2 went without problems, but Ellie stopped halfway down the hallway and started crying when I tried carrying her past the basement door. Not tantrum crying. Scared crying. Actual fear. "He doesn't like loud feet," she whispered. I remember standing there holding her, suddenly very aware of how quiet the house had become. Rain tapped softly against the kitchen windows. The refrigerator hummed, and underneath all of it, I could hear something else. Movement. Very faint, below us. At first, I honestly thought it was pipes. Old houses make noise. But then it happened again. A slow creak, like somebody shifting their weight on wooden stairs. I stood completely still, listening. Ellie buried her face against my shoulder. I told myself I was being paranoid. There are 100 normal explanations for noises in a house. I eventually got all 3 kids upstairs and into bed. Before I turned the lights off, Ava asked me, "Did Ellie talk to him tonight?" I remember laughing nervously. "What?" But Ava already looked like she regretted asking. Nothing. Then she rolled over toward the wall. I went downstairs after that, feeling genuinely unsettled for the first time. Not horror movie scared, more like socially trapped. Like I'd accidentally walked into something deeply uncomfortable that nobody was acknowledging. I sat on the couch, scrolling through my phone for maybe 20 minutes before I heard it. 3 soft knocks. Not at the front door. Below me. Directly underneath the floor. I muted the TV. Silence. Then another sound. A faint scrape, like the bottom of a shoe against wood. I stared toward the kitchen hallway. Every instinct told me not to walk over there, but I did anyway. Slowly, the hallway light cast this dim yellow glow across the basement door. Everything looked normal, until I noticed something sitting on the floor beside the door. A plate. I froze. It looked freshly placed there. Sandwich crusts, an apple, a glass of water. I knew for a fact it hadn't been there earlier. And suddenly every strange thing about the night started rearranging itself in my head. The rule, the kids, the way the parents talked. Ellie listening at the door. I actually whispered, "What the hell?" Then my phone rang so suddenly I jumped. Mrs. Ralston. I answered immediately. Before I could say hello, she asked, "Are the children upstairs?" Not. "How's everything going?" Not. "Are the kids okay?" Just, "Are the children upstairs?" I said yes. There was this pause where all I could hear was road noise through her phone. Then she asked, "Did Ellie speak to him?" My stomach dropped. Not. Did she go near the basement? Did she speak to him? I asked her what she meant. Another pause. Then, in this weirdly calm voice, she said, "Do not open the basement door." It sounded rehearsed, like she'd practiced saying it calmly. I finally asked directly, "Is someone down there?" No answer. Then quietly, "We'll be home soon." And she hung up. At that point, I should have grabbed the kids and left. That's what I think now anyway. But in the moment, I kept trying to rationalize it. Maybe they had a mentally ill relative staying there temporarily. Maybe somebody recovering from addiction. Maybe somebody dangerous but supervised. My brain kept reaching for explanations that made the situation feel manageable. Then I heard footsteps. Slow footsteps. From the basement stairs. Not loud. Measured. One at a time. Creak. Pause. Creak. Pause. Until they stopped directly on the other side of the door. I couldn't move. I just stood there staring at the knob. The whole house felt silent around me. Then Ellie's voice came quietly from behind me. "He wants to see you." I spun around so fast I almost slipped. She was standing barefoot in the hallway holding her stuffed lamb. I have no idea how long she'd been there. "Ellie," I whispered. "Go upstairs." She shook her head slowly. "He likes new babysitters." That sentence scared me more than anything else that night, because it implied history, routine, like this had happened before. Then the doorknob moved slightly. Not rattling, not violent, just a slow turn. Testing it. I grabbed Ellie immediately and carried her upstairs. I locked all 3 kids inside the oldest daughter's room and told them not to open the door no matter what. The older boy started crying because he could tell something was wrong. Ava just sat there looking exhausted, not surprised. That bothered me almost as much as the basement. I called Mrs. Ralston 3 times. No answer. Then, while we were sitting there in silence, Ava quietly said, "He's not supposed to hear new voices." I asked her who was downstairs. She shrugged without looking at me. "Dad says he's sick." That word hung in the room. Sick. Not crazy, not dangerous. Sick. Then footsteps started again downstairs, slow pacing beneath us. Back and forth, back and forth, like somebody trying very hard to stay controlled. About 10 minutes later, headlights finally pulled into the driveway. I've never felt relief like that in my life. The parents came inside quickly. Too quickly. Like they already knew exactly what kind of night it had been. Mr. Ralston immediately walked toward the basement hallway without even asking me what happened. Mrs. Ralston stayed upstairs with the kids. I stood halfway down the staircase listening. I heard the basement door unlock. Then Mr. Ralston said quietly, "You almost came upstairs again." A long silence followed. Then another man's voice answered from below. Calm. Ashamed. "I know." That was somehow worse than if he sounded violent, because he sounded normal, human, like somebody fully aware of himself. Mr. Ralston stayed downstairs for another minute before coming back up. He acted completely calm, told me everything was fine, actually thanked me for handling Ellie, like this was all some difficult but routine family inconvenience. Mrs. Ralston handed me cash at the front door. Before I left, I finally asked, "Who's down there?" The 2 of them exchanged this look I still think about sometimes. Not panic, not embarrassment. Exhaustion. Then Mr. Ralston said, "My brother is staying with us temporarily." That was it. No explanation beyond that. A few months later, I heard through another family in town that Mr. Ralston's younger brother had been accused of inappropriate behavior involving children years earlier. No charges. Nothing proven. But apparently he wasn't allowed around schools anymore. I still think about those kids sometimes, especially Ava. Because the scariest part of the whole night wasn't the footsteps or the basement door. It was how normal everybody acted. Like they'd all adjusted themselves around something dangerous. Like the family had slowly reorganized their entire lives around keeping one man contained. And the worst part is, I don't think the parents believed they were doing anything wrong. I was 19 when this happened. and for a while I stopped babysitting completely because of it. Even now, I still feel strange talking about it, because most of the story sounds invented when you say it out loud. There wasn't some masked guy jumping out with a knife or anything like that. Honestly, if the parents hadn't eventually believed me, I probably would have convinced myself I imagined half of it. I've changed their name and a few details because they still live in the same town. Honestly, so do I. This happened in late August of 2021, right before my sophomore year of college started. I babysat pretty regularly back then for extra money, mostly for families around the northern Jersey suburbs where I grew up. The Harpers were one of the easier families I worked for. Nice house, quiet neighborhood, good kids. They had twin girls, Audrey and Emma, who were 6 at the time. I'd watched them maybe 4 or 5 times before this happened. The parents were going into the city for dinner on a Thursday night. It had been raining on and off all day, and I remember being annoyed because I hated driving their neighborhood roads at night. Their development backed up against a wooded area, so once it got dark, the streets went almost completely black between porch lights. I got there around 6:45. Mrs. Harper answered the door while putting on earrings, clearly rushing to leave. The twins were sitting on the living room floor watching some animated movie with all the lights dimmed except the TV glow. Everything felt normal. That's the part that bothers me most when I think back on it. Nothing felt wrong at first. The parents left around 7. The girls ate popcorn and showed me a dance they'd learned at summer camp. Audrey did most of the talking. Emma was quieter, not shy exactly, just watchful. A couple of times I caught her staring down the hallway behind me while we watched the movie, like something back there had her attention. Once I even turned around because I thought I'd heard movement upstairs. But the house was empty. Around 8:45, I took them upstairs for bed. They shared a room at the end of the second-floor hallway. Big room, 2 twin beds on opposite walls, string lights looped around the window frame. One of those oversized dollhouses taller than either of the girls. It felt cozy, safe, the kind of room that makes you forget it's dark outside. I helped them brush their teeth, tucked Audrey in first, and then Emma stopped near her sister's bed and looked up at me. "Can you check under there?" I smiled a little. "Under the bed?" She nodded. I figured she was stalling. Kids do that. I crouched down and lifted the comforter. The dusty wooden smell that lives under kids' furniture hit me immediately. Storage bins, a few stuffed animals pushed to the back wall. Nothing else. "See?" I said. Emma didn't move. "You didn't check the middle." I remember getting slightly irritated because it was already getting late and I'd been up since early, but I leaned lower, held my phone flashlight flat against the floor, and swept it across. Nothing. Absolutely nothing. Emma still didn't look convinced, but eventually both girls got into bed. Before I turned off the light, Emma asked, "You'll hear us if we yell, right?" I laughed lightly and said yes. Then I went downstairs. For the next hour, everything felt normal again. I sat on the couch watching TV and scrolling my phone while the rain picked up outside. The house creaked occasionally the way old houses do, but nothing that seemed out of place. Around 9:30, while checking the front door out of habit, I noticed the deadbolt was unlocked. I stood there for a second. I was certain I'd heard Mrs. Harper lock it on her way out. The sound of it had been distinct, loud in the quiet house. I turned it myself, felt the bolt slide home, and told myself I must have been wrong. I went back to the couch, but I couldn't fully settle after that. Every small sound suddenly registered differently. the refrigerator hum, rain against the gutters, the occasional creak from the ceiling above me. Around 10:15, I heard small footsteps upstairs. A few seconds later, Emma appeared at the bottom of the staircase holding a stuffed rabbit she always carried around. She looked exhausted, not scared, almost frustrated. "He's still there," she said. The chill moved up the back of my neck before my brain even caught up. "Who is?" "The man." I asked if she'd had a nightmare. She shook her head slowly and said, "He's waiting for Audrey to fall asleep so he can give her a goodbye kiss." I know how that sounds written down, but she didn't say it like a child making something up. She said it the way you explain a rule to someone who should already know it. Flat, patient, certain. My stomach dropped. I kept my voice steady and stood up. "Okay, let's go check again." The upstairs hallway felt colder than it had an hour earlier. Their bedroom door was open wider than I'd left it. I was sure of that. I specifically remembered leaving it cracked only a few inches. Audrey was asleep. Emma stopped in the hallway and didn't come inside. "I'll stay here," she whispered. I pulled up my phone flashlight and crouched beside Audrey's bed. At first it looked the same as before. Then I noticed the center of the mattress. It was bowing upward. Not the way a mattress settles. This was a slow, deliberate rise, like pressure applied from below against the underside of the bed. My brain immediately started explaining it away. The box spring is uneven. The flashlight angle is distorting what I'm seeing. Old mattresses do this. Then it stopped. The mattress settled back down. Flat. Still. Like nothing had happened. Every muscle in my body locked. I reached forward and pressed the center of the mattress with 2 fingers. Nothing. Just a mattress. I jerked backward anyway, my shoulder catching the bed frame. The sound of it cut through the silence like a gunshot. Nothing moved after that. No sound. No breathing. Nothing. I stood up. My hands were cold, and my face felt like it was burning. I checked the closet. Empty. Checked behind the curtains. Nothing. I looked back at Emma in the hallway. She was staring at the space beneath the bed. Not at me. "You made him mad," she whispered. That was the first moment I understood something was actually wrong. Not horror movie scared. Something quieter than that and worse. The sick, slow feeling when your instincts reach a conclusion, your brain is still refusing. I got both girls into the same bed, told them to stay there no matter what, and went downstairs. I locked the back door, checked every window on the main floor, stood in the kitchen for a moment with my back against the counter, trying to decide if I was overreacting. Then I went back to the couch. I couldn't focus on anything. Every sound isolated itself and demanded attention. The refrigerator, rain in the gutters, a floor creak upstairs that could have been the house settling, or could have been weight shifting on old wood. Around 11, I heard something directly above me, a soft, metallic click, like a doorknob turning slowly. I muted the TV and didn't breathe. Silence. Then a faint, deliberate scrape across the floor above me. Not footsteps. More controlled than footsteps. The sound of someone moving carefully. I grabbed my phone. I almost called the parents, but I kept imagining Mr. Harper driving home irritated because I'd panicked over house sounds and a 6-year-old's nightmare. Then Audrey cried out upstairs, not screaming, just startled. A single sharp sound. I ran. I didn't think. I just ran upstairs barefoot and hit the hallway light switch at the top of the stairs. The switch did nothing. The hallway was dark. I know for a fact I had left that light on. I used my phone flashlight instead. Audrey was standing outside the bedroom doorway, rubbing her eyes, confused rather than scared, like she'd woken up suddenly and wasn't sure why. I asked where Emma was. Audrey pointed into the dark bedroom. She's talking to him. I pushed the door open. Emma was sitting upright in bed, facing the far corner of the room. The window threw thin gray light across the floor. She was whispering something I couldn't make out. Then she said clearly, "You have to go now." I turned the light on. The closet door was open several inches. I knew it had been closed. I walked toward it slowly, my legs doing the job while the rest of me stayed somewhere slightly behind. I pulled it fully open. Empty. But there was a smell inside. Warm and close and unmistakable. Sweat. Fresh sweat. The kind that means a body was standing there recently. Then behind me, Audrey said quietly, "What's that?" I turned around. Wet footprints on the hardwood floor beside the bed. Bare footprints, leading from the closet to the bed and back. Still damp at the edges. I didn't check under the bed again. I grabbed both girls and carried them downstairs to the kitchen. Emma started crying the moment we hit the bottom step. Not tantrum crying, the kind that comes from somewhere deeper, when the thing you've been holding finally releases all at once. I got us into the downstairs bathroom and locked the door. The three of us sat on the cold tile floor with the light off, my back against the vanity, a girl on either side pressed into me. Emma's face was buried against my shoulder. Audrey had both fists wrapped around my sleeve. I could feel them breathing. I focused on that while I dialed 911. The bathroom was small enough that I could see the gap under the door from where I sat, and I watched it the way you watch something you're afraid might change. Emma had stopped crying by then. She was very still. That stillness scared me more than the crying had. While I was on the phone with the operator, we heard 3 knocks from upstairs. Slow, evenly spaced, unhurried, like somebody with nowhere else to be. The police arrived quickly. They searched the entire house, found no one. No signs of forced entry anywhere except for one detail. The screen from the twins' bedroom window had been removed and was leaning carefully against the outside wall beneath it. Not broken, not torn, not dropped. Placed. The way someone does it who has done it before and sees no reason to rush. The parents came home to police lights and rain and their daughters wrapped in blankets on the couch. I felt the adrenaline draining out of me by then, leaving behind something that felt embarrassingly close to doubt. Maybe I'd misread everything. Maybe the sheet moving had been a trick of light. Maybe the footprints were old. Then their oldest daughter walked in from a sleepover. She was 12. She came through the door already reading the room the way older kids do, picking up the energy before anyone explained it. She heard someone say Emma had thought there was a man in the bedroom. She went pale so fast I thought she might be sick. She looked directly at Emma. Did he say goodbye again? The room went silent in the way rooms do when something lands that nobody expected. Her mother asked what she meant. The girl started crying almost immediately. 3 weeks earlier, she had woken in the night to find a man crouched beside her bed, watching her sleep. Not touching her, just watching. She had kept her eyes almost closed and stayed completely still because something told her that was safer. She lay there and waited. Before he left, he leaned close to her face and whispered goodbye. She hadn't told anyone because she was certain no one would believe her. The police never identified who was in that house. No fingerprints, no usable evidence, no suspect. The case went nowhere. I'm 24 now. The part I still can't let go of isn't the footprints or the sheet or even the smell in that closet. It's Emma. Because she wasn't afraid of something imaginary that night. She recognized him. She'd seen him before, or heard him before, or sensed him enough times to know his pattern. That's why she kept asking me to check under the bed. Not because she was scared of monsters, because she already knew he was real. And she was trying to warn me in the only language a 6-year-old has. I just didn't listen closely enough. I was 21 when I took the nanny job, and at the time it felt like a miracle. The pay was good, the hours were consistent, and the family lived in a quiet, wealthy neighborhood where nothing ever seemed to happen. The baby, a 6-month-old boy named Oliver, had some medical issues, but I'd worked with infants before, so I wasn't intimidated. From the first day, the mother, Claire, warned me that Oliver was fragile. She said it like it was part of his identity. Fragile stomach, fragile immune system, fragile breathing. She kept a notebook on the kitchen counter filled with dates, symptoms, temperatures, and medication times. She showed it to me before she even gave me the house tour. Her husband, Dr. Evan Harris, was rarely home. He was a physician at a private clinic downtown and worked long hours. When he did come home, he was calm and charming in that polished, professional way. He barely talked about Oliver's health, just nodded along while Claire explained everything in detail. At first, I believed her. Oliver really did get sick a lot. At least once or twice a week, something would happen. He'd start vomiting unexpectedly. His breathing would become shallow. He'd develop a rash or spike a fever. Almost every time, it was just after I'd fed him a bottle or given him medication. Claire would rush in, panicked but oddly prepared, already dialing the pediatrician or grabbing her keys to head to the ER. She cried a lot, talked about how no one understood how hard it was to be Oliver's mother. After the 3rd emergency room visit in 1 week, a thought crossed my mind that made me feel sick for even considering it. Munchausen by proxy. I'd heard about it in a child development class, a caregiver exaggerating or causing illness to gain attention or sympathy. The way Claire hovered, the way she seemed almost energized during crises, the way Oliver was perfectly fine when she wasn't around as much. I hated myself for thinking it, but once the idea was there, I couldn't let it go. I started paying closer attention. I measured bottles twice. I logged medication times myself. When Claire was home, she insisted on handling all the meds personally. She'd take the bottle from my hands, saying she wanted to double-check the dosage. I noticed something else, too. Whenever Oliver had an episode, Dr. Harris was suddenly very involved. Phone calls, medical jargon, quick decisions. He never seemed shocked, just efficient. One night, after another ER trip that ended with Oliver being mysteriously fine by morning, I went home and couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about that notebook, about how neat everything was, too neat. I decided I needed proof. I bought a cheap spy pen camera online. It looked like a normal pen and recorded video to a micro SD card. I told myself I'd only use it if I saw something truly concerning. I told myself I was protecting the baby. A few days later, Claire asked me to stay late. She said she needed a break and was going out with a friend. Dr. Harris wouldn't be home until after midnight. Before she left, she lined up Oliver's evening medications on the counter and reminded me 3 times exactly how much to give him. After she left, I clipped the pen into my pocket, angled toward the counter, and set it to record. The evening was uneventful. Oliver ate, played, and fell asleep easily. No vomiting, no breathing issues, nothing. Claire texted around 9:30 asking for updates. I told her everything was fine. She replied with a single word: good. I stayed until Dr. Harris got home around 12:15 a.m. He thanked me, asked if Oliver had been okay, and told me I could head out. I didn't review the footage that night. I was exhausted and honestly scared of what I might see. The next morning, I watched it. For the first hour, nothing happened. Just me moving around the kitchen, warming bottles, rocking Oliver. I felt stupid for even setting the camera up. Then, around 11:47 p.m., after Oliver was asleep and I was folding blankets on the couch, the kitchen light turned on. Dr. Harris came into frame. I leaned closer to the screen. He didn't look rushed or confused. He moved like someone who knew exactly what he was doing. He opened the cabinet above the fridge and took down a small, unmarked container. He poured a tiny amount of clear liquid into one of Oliver's pre-made bottles, swirling it gently. Then he took out the medication syringe. My stomach tightened as I watched him draw up a dose, larger than what was prescribed, and inject it into the bottle. He wiped the syringe clean, put everything back exactly where it had been, and turned off the light. I paused the video and just stared at my laptop. I replayed it 3 times. It wasn't Claire. Over the next week, I kept recording. Every time Oliver had an episode, the footage showed the same pattern. Dr. Harris tampering with bottles or meds late at night or early in the morning. Sometimes Claire wasn't even home. Sometimes she was asleep upstairs. One clip showed Claire crying on the phone with her sister, saying she felt like she was losing her mind because doctors kept hinting that Oliver's issues were psychosomatic. That was when I realized the full picture. Dr. Harris wasn't just harming his son. He was using his wife's anxiety as cover. A hysterical mother, a stressed caregiver, a medically complex infant, and him, the respected doctor, always there to save the day. I went to the police with the footage. They took it seriously, very seriously. It turned out Dr. Harris had access to several experimental medications through his clinic. Substances that, in small doses, could cause symptoms that mimicked gastrointestinal disorders or respiratory distress, and metabolized quickly enough to be hard to detect. He'd been siphoning them for months. He was arrested quietly. No news coverage at first. Claire was cleared completely. When she found out the truth, she collapsed in the hospital hallway, according to one of the nurses. Oliver recovered fully once his father was removed from the picture. I quit nannying after that. Sometimes I still think about how close I came to being wrong, about how easy it was to blame the mother, and how the person everyone trusted the most was the one hurting him. I keep the spy pen in a drawer now. I don't know why. Maybe as a reminder that the most dangerous things don't always look suspicious at all. If these stories kept you up tonight, my psychological thriller audiobooks are on this channel. Full length, same dark tone, completely free. Start with The Husband. Link in the description.